Number one is Community View. Now listen, you all haven't been stopping by Sammy's Avenue Eatery. Check out that promo on Instagram and you'll have a sense of what's happening right here. City Pages dubbed Sammy's Avenue Eatery as all that and a bag of chips. Now I just kind of threw my piece in. Read the article so that you really get a sense of what's happening here. But the cold pressed coffee, the breakfast sandwiches, who only VJ Smith, our contributing commentator, can tell you about. He's co-host this morning. VJ, tell them about Sammy's breakfast sandwich.
Okay, let me first just say, yum to the yum to the yum yum. Okay, so now I've been trying to get Miss SB Barber to get down on this sandwich, but you know, she's such a diva. She will not eat while she's on the radio. But I'm going to make sure today that she takes a sandwich home with her so she can share with you guys how good it is. Oh man, Tuesday there's two things that I love to do on Tuesday. One, the Rotary. Two, the sandwich. Three, the radio show. And they go in that order. I try to sneak that sandwich in, and that's why I let SB Barber just do a lot of talking early in the morning so I can get a few more bites. I love it. You know, it is really good to be on the show this morning. Last week, I was listening to you. I was driving around listening to you. I was like, oh my God. I miss her. I want to talk. I called in. I want to talk to SB Barber. I want to have a conversation with her. But two things I want to talk about real quick. You guys that are going around robbing people, man, you need to figure out something else to do with your life and your future. I'm so disappointed about what's going on in Heritage Park that our sisters cannot live in peace and harmony because of the violence in our community. I am really, really disappointed. And I think that if you have to rob people for a living, you're not living. If you have to break in people's houses for a living, you're not living. You're not living. And that is just, it's a shame that we have to live like that. It really affects our children and our families. And another thing I want to say is to you guys with these guns, what are you shooting at? What are you shooting at? Evidently, you don't know what you're shooting at. And so you're just shooting and making life miserable for people. It's time for us men to stand up. If you're ready to hit the streets and hit the block, you need to call me at 612-822-1969. We're ready to hit the streets, hit the block. We need more volunteers. We're out there 5 days a week, but we want to be out there more. And we need more volunteers to help us to do this. Our community is suffering. We can't wait on the police. We can't wait on all this other stuff. We have to get out there and touch these families, touch these lives, and make a difference. Now, Miss Barber, let me just share this with you. We have a wonderful guest with us.
Yes.
And we got two. Now, Gloria's over there. She's trying to get down on that sandwich, and she's going to do it.
Gloria, come closer.
She wants to eat that sandwich. She won't be close.
She can do that. She can do that.
She might have to share. She don't want to do that. You know, Gloria's way over there. She don't want to share. But we got Manfred. Right. We're going to get Gloria over here in a minute. Manfred, it's good to have you.
Before we go another step further, we want to thank our sponsors.
Yes.
First of all, Mad Dads, you're off the chain.
Oh,
and I mean that literally. Exactly what you just said in soliciting and recruiting folks to get on board, men to get on board to make a difference in our community.
Absolutely.
You got to be off the chain.
Thank you.
You cannot be hindered in any way. Our children are at stake. So, sponsoring Mad Dads. Now, VJ was on board before they even became a sponsor, and so he's committed to this. He's committed to the cause of Community View. Tuesday New, right here at Sammy's Avenue Eatery. And also we want to thank our sponsor, Try Construction. Now these are organizations that are embedded in the North Side. It makes all the difference in the world. And then of course, Sammy's Avenue Eatery. Look what's happening. I'm telling you, you better read that article. The link is right underneath the show description today. Read that article. And even though the North Side is flourishing right now, businesses are coming on board. But I'm telling you, Sammy is forever. And groundbreaking, they're breaking ground coming December 2016 down at Golden Valley and Plymouth. And that's going to be a hot corridor. I've got some things to tell you all right? But December 2016, Sammy's Avenue Eatery will break ground at that time, and they will serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This will remain the express hub. So you'll still be able, we're not going to change anything, but we're expanding. All right, had to turn this camera on our guest, Manfred Tatzmann. And he is one of the anchors, along with VJ over at, and Miss Gloria over at, I think they've adopted me.
We have.
They've adopted me. But our very own Northside Rotary Club. All right, what do we want to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about mainly Manfred. We're excited about what you're doing and the history of what you've been doing. You've got a lot of history, great history, in not only Minneapolis but across the country. You do a lot of good stuff. Let's talk about some of the wonderful things you've been doing.
Well, I think one of the things that I want to share here today with you guys is the traumatic brain injury and brain injuries and how it affects the community. And there's been a lot of talk recently. Obviously, all of the people that are interested in sports know about concussions in football, concussions that happen in basketball, but I think it goes beyond that. I think this community is affected more so than other communities because of some of the poverty, some of the issues dealing with violence in the community, and so traumatic brain injury is really something that is not talked enough about. And people don't understand enough.
Let me ask this question, because it's a common sense topic. It's a common sense issue. Why would this be something that, let me be real, because this is Tuesday New, we take the gloves off. Why would the federal government turn their heads the other way? Why won't they, from the highest level possible, as it relates to the injuries that our children experience? Children grow up and become fathers, become participants in the community, but as a result of those injuries, see, we're going all the way back to the babies now. As a result of those injuries, what can happen is that child can end up with what military personnel come back to the States with after they've been impacted with head blows and, you know, that kind of thing. And we wonder what's going on. What's the rage all about that's happening? This is not the first time this topic is at the table. How do we as a people, as well as our nation at the federal government level, not stop, drop and roll and say, you know what, we got a problem here and we can fix it? That's the whole thing. They have the ability to deal with that. When you think about our athletes, Carl Eller and many of the Purple People Eaters, and everybody's excited about the Vikings right now. Yeah, hey, I never gave up on them. They're on a roll right now, even without the stadium. Remember back in the day when we had to go out to Bloomington, VJ, in the cold. It wasn't snow. It was freezing cold.
That's right, real cold.
Right, and everybody that was there in order to survive that game, they weren't all drinking hot cocoa, okay?
That's right.
There were some diehards. That was the only way to hang with them. But my point is, Carl Eller has created an organization called NFL Retired Athletes. He's been dealing with this issue also. The care, the aftercare.
That's right. When
those athletes maybe die as a result of the trauma to the head that finally just blows up. And they're no longer with their families to raise them. So he has a platform, and we're going to be talking to him about that. So to have individuals like yourself there that are saying, you know what, we've got to pay attention to that. You know, Will Smith did a movie, and I can't think of the name of it.
Concussion.
Yeah. Wow.
Dr. Amala, who he played, was actually here in town and gave a presentation here in town about that.
He's in town?
He was in town.
He was in town.
Yep, he was in town earlier this year, and that's the character that Will Smith played. Amazing man who just, and the sad part was the NFL never believed him. He was the one that found out about the injuries that players go through, and the NFL never believed him because he was an African.
Now, is it really that they didn't believe them? See, that's a cover-up. Those are the kind of excuses that people use when you are messing with their money. The game makes money.
Absolutely.
The game makes money. And when you're messing with the money, they know that there's a problem. So instead of being honest about that, then they went that direction.
Yep. But even today, even after all the studies, and the NFL has put a lot of money into studies now, and they've got their own institute and all that, it's still, we've got to remember that concussions and brain injuries happen to entire communities. People, elderly, are most susceptible because they fall and they have an injury and it's harder for them. We've got shaken baby syndromes. We've got dads and young parents that don't know what to do when their baby is crying. They bounce them up and down, they shake them, and you can have brain injuries. You've got the kids in sports on the playground getting hurt. You got kids driving wild. You got kids getting into fights. VJ, you know it. You're just talking about that. You know, men getting into fights. Those things, and it's very little to get a brain injury, and people don't realize that. You figure out your brain is like that egg. Okay, you've got that egg yolk inside. You take that egg and you shake that a little bit. That yolk is going to get busted up in there. And the brain is the same thing. It's not solid inside of our head. It's floating around, just like that egg yolk. So anytime you shake that head and you bounce that head off the pavement, off the floor of the football game or whatever it may be, you're bouncing that egg around inside and you're creating damage.
And you know, think about this. What kind of hate does it really take for somebody to kick you in your head and not feel any remorse and not understand what kind of hate and rage does it take for somebody to do that? I was talking to a young man yesterday. He was buying a new phone. I said, what's wrong with your old phone? He said, well, I was walking down the street after work at about 10:30 at night, and these guys, 4 guys walked up to me